Hi everybody, it's Mena. Welcome back to my channel, or if this is the very first video that you're seeing of me, then welcome to my channel. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you didn't already. I post every day except for Tuesday and Friday afternoon sometimes. And today in this video, I'm going to go over the top 5 biggest mistakes I've done while doing knitting tutorials. So if you guys have been subscribed to my YouTube channel, my YouTube channel I'm still doing now, you all know I used to do knitting tutorials here on YouTube. Sadly, I stopped doing them because I started working and they were too much of a time consumer for me to upload and everything, and plus I got a lot of negative comments on them, and that's why I no longer do them on camera anymore. I'm pretty good at teaching people in person, but just not live on camera I'm really bad at. So these are all the mistakes that I've definitely made when it comes to doing a knitting tutorial here on YouTube. And this was because I was pretty much new to YouTube and I was still learning the ways of YouTube. So I'm going to go over all the mistakes I've made, and hopefully this will help you if you're beginning to give a tutorial for people here on YouTube, whether it's knitting, crocheting, or sewing, or whatever hobby you do. Hopefully this will help you out. So I'm gonna get started. So number 1 on my list would have to be not having good lighting. So let's pretend it's really dark in this room. And I just have the lights turned off for an example, and as you can see, it's pretty dark. You can't really see too much of where my hands are, and I definitely used to knit in the dark, which kind of was annoying. Well, actually, my lighting on my camera, which was my iPad that I had at the time, was really bad, so nobody could definitely see. I would get a lot of comments saying, we can't see what you're doing, your lighting is bad, blah, 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 and that was like one of the biggest mistakes I did, because I literally did not know how to fix my lighting properly on my video, and a bunch of people would just message me saying it's hard to see what you're doing. And that definitely happens, but we all learn from our mistakes. So one of the best pieces that I do have advice for when it comes to doing a tutorial on YouTube, always make sure you have good lighting. It's super important because shadows can cause the lighting to be so bad that people cannot see what you were doing, or sometimes it depends on the lighting in your room or your camera lighting. You should always make sure you have good lighting when you're filming a tutorial, because it is impossible to see what anybody is doing. And I know it happens with some YouTubers. Sometimes they can't get good lighting, and I definitely could not get good lighting at the time because I was still a new YouTuber. So definitely, if you're going to start a tutorial, please make sure you don't make the mistake that I made. Number 2 on my list should have to be using a dark colored yarn. Oops, sorry, I made that mistake. Number 2 on my list would have to be using a dark colored yarn. So you never want to use a dark colored yarn when you're doing a tutorial because people cannot see the stitches properly. I know some people have definitely done it. I'm not the only one who's done it. There are some people on YouTube who have definitely done it, whether they were crocheting or knitting and nobody could see their stitches or how the pattern looked because the color they used was so dark. I've definitely done that several times. I think one time I was working with, I think it was a navy or colored yarn or something when I was making a scarf. I wasn't a scarf, but I was making something with a really dark color. Oh, I think it was one of those ruffled scarves that I made, and it came out super dark because the color was so dark. And I've definitely learned, don't ever use dark colored yarns when you're making a knitting tutorial because people cannot see the pattern at all. Number 3 on my list would have to be not seeing where my hands were. So this is definitely one of the biggest mistakes I've made. I'll give you guys an example. So this so this is my Samsung tablet. Let's just pretend it's like super dark and you can't see. And so whenever I would be knitting in front of the camera, when it was faced this way, people couldn't be able to see my hands, or I was moving my hands around so much that people couldn't be able to see what I was doing. So that was like a really hard thing for me to do, is not see where my hands were, because I'd be so busy focusing on the pattern, I would not be able to pay attention and look at the camera at the same time. So that was super duper hard for me when it came to filming. Number 4 on my list would have to be blocking the light. Blocking the light. So that was one thing I accidentally would do when I was doing a knitting tutorial. I'd be blocking the light so much because I'd be moving my head around or something so I could see through the camera. Let me get this straight. Sorry. So I could see through the camera, and that was really, really hard for me. Was not being able to see where my hands were, not being able to see what stitch I was doing. So I had to kind of like look over this way, and I could never see what I was doing through the camera because I had it not facing me, if that makes sense. I mean, it's like I had the screen faced another direction, so I didn't have a viewfinder. I was using an iPad at the time, which made it super difficult for me. And half the time, if you could see like my shadow in the tutorials, it was blocking a lot of the light, so it made it hard for you guys to see my videos. So always make sure when you're doing a knitting tutorial and you're trying to look where your hands were, make sure you're not blocking the light so then people can't see what you're doing. It gets super hard for people to understand what you're doing. Number 5 on my list would have to be accidentally not having the pattern in the description. So this is a pretty common mistake that I have definitely made. Like, I'd forget to put the pattern in the description. So a lot of people could not tell what I was doing, just because even though I was showing it in the video, nobody understood the stitches I was doing. Nobody understood where my hands were moving. Nobody understood where my needles were, just because nobody could see me properly, because at that time I was filming with an iPad and I didn't know how to use it. So a lot of times people would ask me, can you please put the pattern in the description? I don't understand. I was like, sure. And so I would put the pattern in the description, so then they would know exactly what I was doing, my movements. And this was for basic people who were people who were complete knitters and stuff. So then they would be able to understand the pattern and they knew how to read it and stuff. I definitely was really bad at showing how to do it on camera. So it made it super duper hard for me to actually film the YouTube video, because not a lot of people could see the pattern. Not a lot of people could see how I did it properly. And so a lot of people would ask me, can you please put the pattern in the description? I would go, sure. So always make sure when you're doing a knitting tutorial or a crochet tutorial, you can link the pattern in the description if you have a website, or you can just write the pattern in the description box, which makes it easier for a lot of people to see. Okay, so those are my top 5 knitting/crochet tutorial mistakes I've made. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I post every day except for Tuesday and Friday afternoon sometimes, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.